The water in his bucket had turned pink again. Marcus wrung out the mop, his shoulders aching from the familiar motion. This was his life now, arriving at midnight when the last fighter left, mopping up their sweat and sometimes their blood, emptying trash cans full of hand wraps and energy drink cans. He didn't mind. Honest work was honest work. And after losing his construction job and then his small apartment, he was grateful that Rico's MMA academy let him sleep in the storage room, between the cleaning supplies and old equipment. "Hey, janitor, you missed a spot." The voice belonged to Derek the Destroyer Malone, the gym's head trainer and its biggest ego. Even at midnight, Derek was here, his muscled frame casting a long shadow as he stood near the ring. "Actually, come here. I need you for something." Marcus set down his mop and walked over, drying his hands on his worn jeans. Up close, Derek's expensive cologne couldn't quite mask the smell of arrogance. "What can I do for you, Mr. Malone?" Derek smirked, glancing at his phone. "Got a problem. Was supposed to do a demonstration for this. Documentary crew tomorrow showing proper knockout technique. My guy just bailed. I need a body to stand there and take a controlled hit. Easy money. $50 for 5 minutes. Marcus's stomach tightened. $50. That was groceries for 2 weeks. Maybe even enough to save a little. "I don't know anything about fighting, sir." "That's the point. You just stand there, look tough for the camera, then go down when I tap you. These documentary people want authenticity." Derek made air quotes. "They want to show how a trained fighter can end a confrontation in one strike. You're perfect, regular guy, believable." Something in Derek's tone made Marcus uncomfortable. But $50 was $50. "Okay, I'll do it." "Good man. Be here at 2 p.m. tomorrow. Wear something that doesn't look homeless." Derek laughed at his own joke and walked away, already texting on his phone. Marcus returned to his mop, but the pink water seemed darker now. He'd been invisible before, but at least he'd been safe in that invisibility. Now he'd be visible in a way that made his chest tight with anxiety. The next afternoon, Marcus stood nervously in borrowed gym shorts and a t-shirt that Rico, the gym owner, had given him. The documentary crew bustled around, setting up cameras and lights that made the old gym look almost professional. Derek strutted around in designer fight gear, playing to the cameras, his confidence filling every corner of the room. "This is Marcus," Derek announced to the crew. "Regular guy, no training." Perfect example of what happens when someone without skills steps into a fighter's world. The director, a thin woman with kind eyes, approached Marcus. "Don't worry. Derek assured us this is completely safe. It's just for show." Marcus nodded, though his mouth had gone dry. Something felt wrong. The way Derek kept smiling at him, like a cat watching a mouse. The way some of the other trainers had gathered to watch, their expressions somewhere between pity and anticipation. "All right, Marcus, get in the ring," Derek commanded. "Stand right there in the center." Marcus climbed through the ropes, his legs shaky. The canvas felt strange. Under his feet, he'd mopped it 1,000 times, but never stood on it like this. The lights were hot on his face. The cameras were pointed at him like accusations. Derek entered the ring with the grace of a predator. "Okay, for the documentary, I'm going to show a basic overhand right. Marcus here will react naturally, then take the fall. Ready?" But as Marcus looked into Derek's eyes, he saw something that made his blood run cold. This wasn't going to be gentle. This wasn't going to be for show. Derek was going to actually hit him, probably to humiliate him, to remind everyone of their places in the world, the fighter and the janitor, the somebody and the nobody. Time seemed to slow down. Derek wound up, his shoulder rotating back, his weight shifting. Marcus had seen this exact movement 100 times while mopping, watched fighters practice it until it was muscle memory. He'd never trained a day in his life, but he'd observed thousands of hours of training. Something ancient stirred in Marcus's chest. Not anger, but dignity. A memory of his father's voice. "You can take a lot of things from a man, son, but you can't take his choice in how he stands." As Derek's fist came forward, Marcus's body reacted on instinct. He slipped slightly to the side, just like he'd seen fighters do, and Derek's punch whistled past his ear. Before Derek could reset, before thought could catch up with motion, Marcus's own fist came up in a simple, economical motion. It wasn't a trained punch. It wasn't technical, but it was real. Marcus's fist connected with Derek's jaw with a sound like a door slamming. Derek's eyes went blank, his knees buckled, and he collapsed onto the canvas like someone had cut his strings, out cold. The gym went silent except for the whir of the cameras. They were still rolling. Marcus stood there, shocked, staring at his own hand like it belonged to someone else.
Oh God, is he okay?
I didn't mean... The other trainers rushed into the ring. Rico was there too, checking Derek's pulse, his face unreadable. The documentary director stood frozen, her mouth open. Derek came to after a few seconds, groggier and more confused than hurt. But his pride had taken the knockout blow. As his eyes focused on Marcus standing over him, something shifted in his expression, humiliation giving way to rage. "You're done here," Derek spat, being helped to his feet by the other trainers. "You're fired. Get your stuff and get out." "Wait," Rico's voice cut through the chaos. The gym owner, a 60-year-old former boxer who'd seen everything, stepped between them. "Nobody's getting fired. Rico, this janitor just assaulted me." "I saw what happened." "Derek, so did these cameras." Rico pointed at the documentary crew. "You wound up for a real shot. This man defended himself with one punch. One punch that a trained fighter should have seen coming from a mile away." Derek's face reddened, but he said nothing. Rico turned to Marcus. "Where'd you learn to do that?" "I didn't. I've watched. Every night for 3 years, I've watched people train while I cleaned. I guess I absorbed some of it." A slow smile spread across Rico's weathered face. "The best teacher is observation. You know how many fighters I've seen who train every day but don't really see what they're doing. This man cleaned floors and learned more than some of them will in a lifetime." He turned to address the whole gym. "Marcus doesn't just work here anymore. If he wants it, he trains here. Free membership, and I'll work with him personally." The offer hung in the air like grace itself. Marcus felt something break inside him, a dam he'd built to protect himself from hope. Tears blurred his vision. "I can't pay you, Rico. I have nothing." "You have more than you think," Rico said quietly. "You have eyes that see, a heart that endures, and now everyone knows you have a hell of a right hand. That's enough to start with." The documentary director was whispering urgently to her crew. She approached Marcus with something like wonder in her eyes. "That was incredible. Real. Raw. This is going to change our whole documentary. Would you be willing to tell your story?" Derek had slunk away, his defeat complete. But Marcus barely noticed. He was looking around at the gym, this place that had been his prison, and his sanctuary, his humiliation, and now his transformation. The other fighters were watching him differently now, not with mockery, but with something like respect. Over the next months, the documentary aired. Marcus's story, the janitor who knocked out the champion, went viral. But more than that, Marcus transformed. Rico trained him properly, teaching him that the instinct he'd shown that day could be shaped into real skill. Marcus worked harder than he'd ever worked, fueled by something more powerful than revenge or pride. He was fueled by the second chance that kindness had given him. A year later, Marcus still mopped the floors of Rico's gym, but now he did it as part owner, having bought in with the money from the documentary and his first amateur fights. He trained disadvantaged kids for free, teaching them that observation, patience, and dignity could change everything. That being knocked down didn't mean staying down. And every time he mopped that canvas, he remembered what really mattered. Not the punch that changed his circumstances, but Rico's choice to see him as more than a janitor, and his own choice to remain kind even when the world tried to make him invisible. That was the real victory, the one that could never be taken away.